Welcome to the fifth episode of Mushrooms on Mars. This is your host, Lalita. So in the past 4 episodes, we spoke about the different plant growth systems on the ISS. We spoke about closed loop systems, the importance of closed loop systems, why do we need them, and what are the different kinds of closed loop systems that are being tested on the ISS. So in this episode, we are going to talk about one of the plant growth systems on the ISS, and it is called the Veggie, V-E-G-G. It's a compact modular plant growth system that has an open air design, and it has LED lights, and it has these things called plant pillows, which has a seed, fertilizer, and a kind of clay medium for the plants to grow, and a wicking layer for water. The main challenge is microgravity. So things don't grow the same way as they do here on Earth. And they have had some success growing plants like lettuce, radishes, zinnias, mustard greens, and I think mizuna. And they're trying to grow zucchini and tomatoes. Now, certainly the success of growing vegetables with the veggie system means, one, you're getting fresh produce for the astronauts on board, and it reduces the number of resupply missions from Earth. And of course, all the psychological advantages and benefits of seeing all that color and texture and things that is familiar to us as food. It's not freeze-dried, it's real, plants are alive, food is alive. So that has some value, and it has a psychological impact. In space, when the astronauts go, they're just like, during long duration missions, they're just floating in space with nothing to keep them tethered to Earth. And the role of these plants, it is significant. I don't know if we appreciate it enough here on Earth. We are going to do a deep dive on this veggie plant growth system. And for the material, please go to jelliclesfarm.com, and you can find all the material that I've dug up for this under Mushrooms on Mars. Look for episode 5. Onwards.
Okay, so we've all seen the movies, right? You've got these intrepid astronauts exploring the vastness of space. But have you ever stopped to think about what they eat out there?
Right.
I mean, forget about that freeze-dried ice cream. We're talking about fresh, actual food grown in space.
Exactly.
And that's what we're diving into today, the Veggie system on the International Space Station.
Absolutely. NASA's very own orbiting garden.
Yeah.
Although it's a lot more than just a salad bar in space.
Right.
Veggie is actually helping us to solve this really important question for those long duration missions we keep hearing about.
Yeah.
How do we actually create a sustainable food supply, not on Earth?
Yeah, beyond Earth. It's a big one to crack. And you know what? When I first heard about astronauts gardening in space, I have to admit, I pictured something insanely high tech, right?
Well, for sure.
Crazy complicated. But the veggie system it's surprisingly simple, elegant even, I'd say.
It really is. One of the things that I find so fascinating is how they deal with water in microgravity. Down here, we take it for granted. Water flows down, that's just gravity, right? But in space,
oh yeah,
clumps together, huge problem for plant roots.
That's right. And speaking of those roots, I remember reading about what they call them, plant pillows that they use in veggie. Are those designed to specifically address that whole water clumping thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So these pillows are essentially like these mini ecosystems. They have the seeds, obviously,
Yeah.
and fertilizer. But the really cool part is the wicking system.
Okay, break that down for me.
So it uses something called capillary action.
Capillary action sounds like something straight out of Star Trek.
Right, but it's actually the same principle that, like, lets trees pull water up from their roots, even against gravity. So the wicking material in the plant pillows, it pulls the water upwards, make sure those roots stay hydrated. It doesn't even matter which way is up in microgravity.
Oh, that is so clever. Like, they had to basically rethink how plants even grow.
Yeah.
Just to make this work.
Totally. And it's not even just water, right? Think about airflow, light, even just like, how do you contain the soil when everything's floating? Veggie has to create this perfect, self-contained little world to keep those plants healthy. They even use these like special LED lights to mimic sunlight.
It's like a little spaceship disco for plants.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, but with all that moisture and that, controlled environment, isn't contamination a huge concern?
Oh, 100%.
It's a pretty enclosed space up there.
It's a big challenge. And it has been an issue in the past, actually.
Really?
Remember those zinnias they grew a while back?
Right. Those were the ones that almost didn't make it, weren't they?
Exactly. They had a run-in with a pretty nasty fungal outbreak. Took a lot of ingenuity to save them, actually.
So how did they tackle that? Did they have to, like, redesign the whole veggie system? So how did they tackle that? Did they have to, like, redesign the whole veggie system? It actually involved, some pretty old-fashioned gardening know-how, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Astronaut, what was his name? Scott Kelly?
Okay.
He was on board at the time. Anyway, he noticed the problem and kind of just took matters into his own hands.
Wait, really? Tell me more about this. I love these little behind-the-scenes astronaut stories.
Oh, it's fascinating. So he basically became like the resident space gardener, like adjusting the watering schedule, airflow, all that, just based on like what he was seeing with the plants.
Wow.
It really shows you how even with all this amazing technology, sometimes you need that human touch.
That's incredible. Like something straight out of The Martian. Seems like space exploration takes this unique blend of like cutting edge tech and just good old fashioned know-how. But on that note, what else are they growing up there? Besides the zinnias, I mean. Have we moved beyond like basic space salad yet?
Oh, absolutely. Way beyond freeze-dried ice cream these days.
Okay, good.
They've actually grown a pretty impressive variety of crops, like different kinds of lettuce, radishes, even mizuna.
Mizuna.
It's this kind of spicy Asian green.
Oh, interesting. Like space mustard greens.
Exactly.
Now I'm seriously curious about what that tastes like. Like grown up there in space, does it taste different? Is the texture weird?
Those are great questions. And scientists are actually studying all that right now. That's one of the exciting things about veggie. It's not just about, having food up there. It's also pushing the boundaries of our understanding of how plants adapt. For example, they've actually been able to grow red romaine lettuce that's richer in nutrients than stuff here on Earth.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's not even just about like keeping astronauts alive. It's about maybe even growing things better. And that could have some serious implications for agriculture down here too.
Exactly. The things they're learning from veggie, they could revolutionize how we grow food, both in space and right here on Earth.
Yeah.
Especially, those more difficult environments.
Okay, so we've got lettuce, zinnias, space mustard greens. What's next on the menu? Like, will we ever see astronauts biting into, I don't know, a juicy space tomato?
You might be surprised to hear they're already working on it.
Really?
Yeah, tomatoes and zucchini are next up on the veggie roster. And they're not even just trying to grow them. They're studying how different light wavelengths, red versus blue light, how those affect pollination and fruit development in microgravity.
That is so cool. So it really is true. Every experiment up there, it's not just about the immediate result. It's adding to this huge body of knowledge.
Exactly. Veggie is about so much more than just, meals for astronauts. It's about creating these life support systems that can be totally self-sustaining, especially for those long-duration missions. It's about pushing the boundaries of what we know about plants in general.
And speaking of those long-duration missions, I can't help but think about Mars. Everyone's talking about going to Mars. What role does a system like Veggie play in a mission like that? And speaking of those long-duration missions, I can't help but think about Mars. Everyone's talking about going to Mars. What role does a system like Veggie play in a mission like that?
It's absolutely essential. I mean, when we finally send humans to Mars, one of the biggest challenges, logistically speaking, is going to be keeping them fed. for years.
Yeah, you can't just order takeout, right?
Right. And shipping it of food all the way from Earth. Not exactly practical.
Not to mention the cost of that shipping bill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Veggie is about proving that, we can actually create a self-sustaining food source. And not just on a spacecraft, maybe even on another planet.
So Veggie is what, like a test run for this whole idea of closed-loop food production in space.
Exactly. Every lettuce leaf, every radish, every little thing they grow gets us closer to that goal. A self-sufficient Mars colony.
It's amazing to think about, something as simple as growing a salad could be key to humanity's future in space. But it's more than just the practical side of things, don't you think? I'd imagine having access to fresh food, something you actually grew yourself. That's going to be good for morale, right?
Oh, 100%. There are tons of studies, even here on Earth, about how therapeutic gardening can be.
Okay.
And when you're stuck in this, metal box millions of miles from home, that connection to nature, that's huge.
I bet. Tending to a garden, taking care of it, watching it grow, it's a good reminder that there's still life,
Yeah.
Still hope, even when you're in the most extreme environment imaginable.
Yeah. Exactly. And it kind of sums up what space exploration is all about, don't you think? It's not just about visiting other worlds. It's about figuring out how to live on them.
Right.
To create these little pockets where humans can, actually thrive.
Well said. So we've covered a lot today. We talked about the veggie system, how ingeniously simple it actually is. We talked about the surprisingly diverse space menu. I mean, space mustard greens, who knew?
Right.
And we even got into the bigger picture, how this all ties into long-duration missions, sustainable living beyond Earth. What's the biggest takeaway for you? What stuck with you?
Honestly, it's the ingenuity. That humans can take this crazy idea, replicating all the conditions for life in one of the most hostile environments we know of, and actually make it work. That blows my mind a little bit, I have to say.
Yeah, it's pretty inspiring stuff. Who knows, maybe someday we'll be doing a deep dive into Martian greenhouses, lunar hydroponics.
Right. And imagine what we'll be growing by then. Some crazy space vegetable we haven't even dreamed up yet, right?
Now, that's something to look forward to. It just goes to show, when it comes to exploring space, the smallest steps can sometimes lead to the biggest discoveries. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into space agriculture. Until next time, keep looking up and hey, maybe even start a garden of your own. You never know what it might inspire.
So how was it? How was the deep dive discussion on the Veggie Plant Growth System? We are going to speak about APH in the next episode. The APH plant growth system is called the Advanced Plant Habitat. And this too is on the ISS. It's a slightly more sophisticated plant growth system, and it was developed by NASA to grow the plants in a highly controlled closed loop environment. First of all, it's not like the veggie system, which is an open air design. APH is more an enclosed environment, but we will cover that in the next deep dive on mushrooms on Mars. So until then, goodbye.